Okay, guys, I am back at the Marquee Youth Stage in St. Charles, waiting to see Alice in Wonderland Jr. I just saw Dorothy in Wonderland earlier this morning, so gonna have a lot of Wonderland today. And there's been some strange occurrences for me today, also. I feel quite like Alice and Dorothy, very confused and lost, and looking for people to help me. In regards to the Shrek show I was supposed to see today. But that's not what this video is about. But that will probably have its own video. So, for now, just waiting for Alice. I'm very early because I missed my Shrek show. Okay, today we are talking about Alice in Wonderland. Not to be confused with Dorothy in Wonderland, which I saw earlier the same day. Also, quick shout out. I don't know what you would call this dimension of paper. It's not the 11 by 17. It looks like a normal 8.5 by 11 folded in half, but it's got this third page, which isn't too exciting for me because it's mostly referencing their camps and stuff. But I like to see a slightly different program set up. So just by the nature of the play and my experience, I'm going to relate a lot of this to both the Disney movie, which this is the Disney version of. I know there are Alice in Wonderland is a public domain story, so I know there are many versions of it, but this is based on the Disney movie. But I'm also going to compare it to Dorothy in Wonderland because that's also not based on the Disney movie, but like it very clearly references a lot of it. And so seeing both of these in the same day, sorry, kicked my tripod there. A couple things stick out. It's mostly the same story as the movie. Neither version, the Alice or the Dorothy, did the Walrus and the Carpenter, but that's not actually something that happens. That's just a story that Tweedledum and Tweedledee tell. So it's not surprising that those are both cut. That those are cut. It's not surprising that that is cut out of both versions. But one of the biggest changes between the movie and this show is that at the end, instead of playing croquet with the Queen, they play Simon Says. Now, I think that makes sense, especially with this being Alice in Wonderland Jr. Like, that's an easier thing to do on stage, especially with a bunch of people, than to try to stage a croquet match. So I don't know if it's like that in the non-junior versions, but it just stuck out to me as odd because in the Dorothy version, they do the croquet scene, and they have like lawn flamingos that they use as the mallets, and they have little stuffed animal hedgehogs that they use as the croquet balls. And that stage at that theater, Playhouse 38, is very small, and they're able to make it work. And the stage at Marquee Youth Stage is quite large, and they went with the simple. And not that it was their decision, but that show went with the simpler. This is a strange place to pet you. Simon Says. So that was, I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it made it worse. It was just an interesting difference because so much of it was the same. Then the other big difference, and again, sticks out to me because it's different from both the movie and the Dorothy play, Dorothy in Wonderland, which is similar to the movie, and this Alice show is distinct. The Cheshire Cat. In this play, the Cheshire Cat is basically the narrator, which, again, on its own, is fine. But in the Dorothy play, there were 3 actors that played the Cheshire Cat, so that one could leave one area of the stage and then another one could pop up on the other area, and it's like disappearing, right? Makes sense. In the Alice play, there's also 3 actors playing the Cheshire Cat. So when I saw that in the program, I'm like, oh, they're going to do the same thing. They don't do any of that. The Cheshire Cat barely interacts in the actual story itself. It's mostly just as a narrator. There's a couple interactions that they do, but like they're all just talking. It's almost like a three-headed dog type situation. They're all just talking in turn, but they're all on stage at the same time. There's no disappearing or reappearing or anything like that. And like the attitude, the madness of the Cheshire Cat and laughing and all that stuff was not present. So that was a little strange. Um, One other thing, but give me a second here. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. One other thing that the Alice play did that the Dorothy play didn't do, that kind of like the Cheshire Cat, I thought I knew where they were going with it, and then I was kind of surprised. They cast 3 different Alices. So there's Alice, and then they have small Alice and tall Alice. And so I see that in the program before the show starts, and I'm like, okay, so they're going to have the main girl, and then probably an older girl, a taller girl, and then a younger, shorter girl. Now, this is the 3rd show I've seen at this venue, and there have been some pretty young actors in some of them. In particular, what sticks out to me is in Peter Pan, the crocodile, the TikTok croc. It was just the smallest little girl you've ever seen with a crocodile mask doing this across she literally just walked across the stage doing that, and it was hilarious. So I'm expecting they're going to have a pretty small little kid for small Alice and a pretty tall, lanky kid for the tall Alice. So they do the first change, because this one, like I said, this one does start with Alice kind of out in the countryside with her family. It's not exactly the same as the movie, but it's similar, where the Dorothy one started in Oz. And where was I going with this? Okay, so when she travels down the rabbit hole, she gets to the door, and like they say that she's too big to fit through the door, but the door is just being played by another kid, or the doorknob is at least, and it's like they could have, whoever made the costumes or whatever, or the scenery, just like her head was like in the door, so she was the doorknob, and then the door was built around her. So I'm not sure if that was a costume or a set piece. Whatever. Point is, the actress easily could have fit through the door that they depicted, and you would think that they could have easily depicted a smaller door, because it's not like she ever actually goes through it physically. They just say that she goes through it, so it didn't need to be that size. Weird choice. But anyway, point is, when she changes size to smaller Alice, the girl that they got to play smaller Alice, while she did look like maybe she was younger, she was taller. Not a lot, and maybe they're similar and just one's bow was a little bit higher or something, but she looked the same height or slightly taller than the main Alice, which was just kind of funny to me, because I was expecting a tiny little child. They did, like, the costuming. They had the apron. It's not an apron, but it looks kind of like an apron. The apron part of the costume on the small Alice was bigger, so it kind of looked like, her costume had stayed the same size while she got smaller. But it was just, I thought that was not what I was expecting. And then when they did the tall Alice, the apron part was a lot smaller, but that girl was much taller than the other girls, so that one made more sense. And they did do the scene with her in the house, and they just had a little house, like, contraption built around her, which was kind of cool, kind of funny. Then the other weird thing with the multiple Alices is that, the main Alice had the most to do, but small Alice had quite a bit to do, quite a lot of lines to learn, and even a couple songs. So it's like, I get from that perspective why they didn't do a very, very young kid, but then tall Alice had very little to do compared to the other two. So I'm like, okay, that's you'd think maybe you'd want to give the older character more things to do. And like some of it, like it had to be what it had to be based on the scene. Like it's got to be the small Alice with the flowers, and it's got to be the big Alice in the house. And they're basing it on the Disney movie, so most of the songs are kind of the same. So there is a song with the flowers and with the caterpillar. So that's small Alice, but there's not a song in the house, which is big Alice. So like, again, this isn't anything against the this venue or these kids or the people that put on this production. It's just this play, whoever adapted it, like you'd think they could have been more cognizant of that and like maybe try to make them more equal. I mean, I get it if you want the main Alice to be the main Alice, but it's weird to have main Alice here and small Alice with this much to do, and then tall Alice with almost nothing to do. But you know, that's just I'm looking for things to try and constructively criticize. I don't know why she's going for this under the chin scratch. That's not a common spot for her. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, that's Alice in Wonderland Jr. This is one of the shows that, like, when I started looking for shows at the end of last year to make my list, I wanted to see Alice in Wonderland. And I will seek this out more. Partly because I know there's many different versions of this show, but, like, even if they're all the same thing, there are so many characters, which means so many actors, and there's so much you can do with the staging and the scenery and the costumes that I feel like I could go see this exact same script at 5 different places and it would be 5 different experiences. Also, this is the first play I've seen this year that added in a 6-7 joke. I can't remember what the setup for it was. I think it was the White Rabbit kept saying that he was late. And someone said, "Why do you keep saying that so many times?" And Alice said, "He said it like 67 times." And I'll give credit to the crowd because there were a lot of kids in the crowd and they didn't lose their minds like some of my classes would if they heard that. But take that for whatever that is. I feel like I had one more thought in the brain. I'm very this venue continues to intrigue me because the first play I saw was very very short, less than an hour. The second play that I saw was very very long, and the short one had younger actors. The second one was very long with older actors and very very good. And this one is like middle of the road, kind of what I would expect from this kind of place. And so I'm just like, I don't know how to tell in the future what what I should expect. Should I expect a short play with little kids? Should I expect a medium play with middle kids? Should I expect an older play with older teenage kids? I'm curious to go back and like check the prices for each of these shows, and maybe that reflects the level of play or musical that it is. They've all been musicals actually. That's interesting. Um, but I don't know. I had another thought that I can't call to mind right now. I think I was just gonna circle back to the idea of seeing it at 5 different places and getting 5 different experiences. This is the venue I've mentioned before that really utilizes a projection screen to change their scenes. So they had a lot of different scenes, but they didn't have a whole lot of scenery that was actually changing. It was mostly just the screen. They had some rehearsal cubes that they moved around for different things, which I think were well used. But like when I saw Anastasia, the permanent set pieces that were on stage the whole time were pretty minimal, but they had a lot that they would bring on or off for different scenes. At Peter Pan, it was kind of like they had the bigger pieces for when they were in the bedroom, and then a lot of smaller things for when they were in Neverland. And then for this show, the pieces that stayed in place the whole time were they were bigger and more elaborate. They were like playing cards and weird twisty twirlies and everything like that. But those weren't really part of the scenes. They were just kind of atmosphere. and there wasn't a lot that was brought on. It was mostly just the rehearsal cubes moved around in different orientations. And the Cheshire Cats, they had like one of those staircase platform things, kind of like at like an airport or something, where it's like a rolling staircase with a little platform, and it was decorated on the side with the Cheshire Cat, so that it wasn't like it wasn't just a staircase sitting there, but like they kind of just like sat there and watched the play and narrated different things. Um, so that was kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, it was like I said, this was about what I would expect from this theater. Not this theater, but like a theater like this if I had never been there before. A medium length show with I feel like mostly middle school to late elementary school kids, and it was pretty much what I expected out of an Alice in Wonderland show. Like, again, it was weird to see this on the same day as Dorothy in Wonderland, um, but both of them were, while they had a lot of similarities, both of them were their own unique experience, and I'm glad that I got to see both. And it's just interesting that they were so near each other, both in time and in location. But I found a spot behind her ears that she really likes. You can't see her though. But that's gonna do it for this one. So thank you for watching, and have a good day. I'm trying to use this hand so I don't have to stop petting her ears.